Benji,
All right.
mate, I'm very happy you came on.
This is for you, mate. I believe in you, so you convinced me very well. It wasn't hard. No, I don't want to discount what you do,
Okay.
but I don't think I would do well at something like this. So this is why I didn't want to do it. But I believe in you enough, so I'm doing it for you.
That was the interesting part. The conversations on the phone and throughout the last couple of weeks was, I don't have an interesting life. People don't want to listen to me, but I think you do.
I still stand by that.
I still think you have an interesting life, bro.
It's a combination of me not having an interesting life and also my speech impediment, creating the not so ideal environment. We will talk about that, I'm sure.
Well, let's be honest. It's going to make me feel a lot better because I'm voice cracking 24/7 on here. So it's going to even out.
Just by that, I'm surprised you're still doing this.
I know, right? The amount of the amount of text messages I get because of that is ridiculous. Well, welcome, ladies and gents. Welcome to Talk to Me, the show where I get my friends to talk to me. Today, I have a very old friend, a very, I guess a guy that's been a mentor over the last 7 or 8 years now. And I'm very excited to get his story on camera. Ben, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Let's do this thing, man.
Let's go.
All right. First off, before we get into it, I need to ask you. We take it back about 4 months ago. You hear Stat and I are doing this. What goes through your head?
It always intrigues me as to people who have time, what they do with their spare time.
That's fair.
As somebody who doesn't have any spare time in my life, I value spare time.
Mm-hmm.
What I think I would want to do in spare time, and this is not one of them. Like, this is why I'm surprised. But at least, like, there's a lot worse things I could think that you could be doing other than doing a podcast. So there's value. Number two, it's a skill set.
Okay.
I think that's I'm proud of that. Having Stat as a co-anchor, you know, that's another interesting choice. He'd probably think the same about you. So
That's a fair point.
So, you know, I'm not judging either one more harshly. And the social circles that we hang out with, because I think we're on the same level now, they're not very encouraging about
Podcasts
podcasts.
or anything different whatsoever.
Anything that they're not doing themselves or interested in themselves.
Correct.
So I know you probably copped a lot of slack leading up to this very moment, even during this very interview.
100%. But mate, you've been one of the supporters from the start. You've been with us since episode 1, and it's
I subscribed very quickly because I actually have really enjoyed this.
really,
Some more than others, I'll be honest.
of course.
Just because that's my style.
Yep.
But some have actually listened to twice because I enjoyed it the first
Really?
time. A few weeks later, I thought, you know what, I want to laugh again.
Wow. Okay.
Like Adam Reed, surprisingly, I
Very
liked
funny
it.
guy.
Like I don't know what I was expecting. Him and I are good friends outside, so it's him and I get along. But very interesting chat.
Very interesting chat. And you guys have a thing in common in that you're both lawyers. So why don't you explain to us who you are, what you do, what's your life like, man?
Okay, Ben, my name. When I was about 16, I had to put in my preferences for uni back in a very, very long. I think it's like 18 years ago now.
It's a long time.
A long time ago. My first choice was social work. That was my first preference back then. When you got your UAI, it's not even called that anymore.
Yep.
And I got accepted. Told my parents like, I'm going to become a social worker. The very next sentence was, no, you're not. You can't support a family, so go change it. So I changed it. Surprisingly,
Which is very different now. Social workers are on pretty good money now.
Yeah, but knowing my personality type, I'm surprised I submitted. Must have been walking with the Lord very well at that stage.
I was going to say.
Life. So I changed it to HR back then, 100 years ago when I was 18. It wasn't a career back then.
HR,
there were no HR managers back then.
Okay.
It was a very new industry. It was the very first year Macquarie University were holding that degree. It was like that's how.
Oh, right.
That's
So that's
how
a
long
risk.
ago. So I applied for it because I had read up. Fun fact: Stephanie Halou, now Khmer, at the time, we did our first year of uni together.
Okay.
HR. She convinced me and said, let's just do this. So don't know why. I agreed. I got in. Then after my first year, I must have done well enough that they offered me a double degree in HR and law.
All right.
And that's how this all started. It wasn't a career aspiration.
So
It
you
wasn't-
weren't the 7-year-old thinking I'm gonna be like a few good men jumping up and
I'll
doing
say
more.
this to you: I am never the smartest in any room that I walk in.
Okay.
I'm hand on heart, I'm not being humble. I'm being honest, but I have the greatest will to achieve something. In my opinion.
I'd agree with that.
So I didn't get the marks to get into law. I don't think I have the intellect to be one of those, to be a barrister or to be a partner of a firm. Technically, I don't think I have that knowledge, but what I lack in knowledge and technical skill, I think I have in will and desire to achieve goals and to progress in my life. So I got into law. 5 years later, I'd finished my degree. I was working full time in a law firm, and then I find myself working in an industry that had no desire. And then to top that off, I'm working for IAG, now in-house legal, in insurance. So not two of the most exciting areas of work, law and insurance, but praise God, it's actually been a really good career move for me. I love my role. I love the people I work with. And it's given me some flexibility to be able to do ministry in the same time. But
Yeah, and so before we get into the ministry side of it, what is it about that side of law, I guess, that intrigues you the most? Like you said, it's not the most interesting side of law, but there's got to be something there that intrigues you by it.
For me, I like it because it's untested. A lot of what I do in my class action space, we haven't really held people responsible for their actions in the scheme of what I do within class action. So we're talking about claims that are over 5 mil, some claims up to 120 mil. So for me, being able to work on a caseload like that, where I did one in Tasmania recently, where it was the very first one that they had run in that state ever.
Really?
And so we were guiding the court, not me personally. We had senior counsel and very brilliant minds doing it. But I was instructing them.
Yeah.
And we were setting the tone for the whole proceedings.
Okay.
And for me, that's interesting because, how many times can you say in your career, considering the law is so old within this country, not against other countries, but within Australia, we're not making new law personally, or I'm not helping shape the industry, but I can in this respect. So that's exciting for me. Probably not exciting for many people.
I think that's very exciting because when I went through my court case and all that, it was all about, okay, what happened in the previous case before? How did they correlate and whatever? So to be the guy that's like, okay, this is going to be the one that's used in the future, that's a pretty cool stamp.
Yeah, so we're setting precedents in our insurance industry, every other week, every other month, in different scenarios or different situations, but I'm able to be part of that, and they get changed and they get superseded very quickly. But it's just nice to know that we're getting written judgments that's going to change, ways that claims are looked at in future. So for me, it's a small thing that keeps me going every day.
No, I like that. But you said that also gives you space to work in ministry. Get me into ministry, talk to me, because
you're the only person I can talk to about this because you actually understand.
All right.
When I say we're in very similar roles, but we don't have a title.
Yep.
I can have claim that I've never had a great title within our church. As in, I've never been a deacon. I have never been head of any ministry. Outside Elevate, which I forced into. It wasn't something that I aspired to do. So I haven't, but we have done almost everything at some stage in some capacity. So for me, it's just you're the only person who probably understand when I say this. It's a lot, but giving back to God is obviously why we do it.
That's probably the most, I guess, for me, and I'll probably regret saying this on camera, the funnest part about the ministry is how unknown it is every single week and how you can just step into something with zero experience prior. But it's also the most testing part of it as well. It is kind of difficult.
So up until 24, before I got married, I actually didn't have a very heavy active role in ministry. I had done choir or had played piano, but that was the extent of what I did. That was, for a very long time, the only thing I did in church. When I was 16, history will show that I played piano, the only piano player at that time. We didn't have all these ladies who can play, and Adam and all these gifted people, where it was forced upon me to learn quickly. My very first service playing piano, I was stopped halfway through a song and said stop because it's horrible.
Wow.
That's how big of a need there was.
Yeah.
It wasn't because I had the skill. It was we had a gap. I filled it. did music. And then 24, I bought a restaurant. Fun time of my life.
The Middle Feast.
The Middle Feast, represent. So then I was taken out of ministry then. Had zero ministry.
Okay, so your sole focus was that.
Just I was working full time, 2 jobs at the time, IAG by day, Middle Feast by night, weekend. Where I wasn't doing ministry. And so, like people would think, oh, he's always done ministry. He's always been involved in ministry. Up until then, so now fast forward, I'm now 27 and I'm still have zero ministry. So you could imagine someone who sees me now would think he's been doing this his whole life.
Since 18, 19. You know what? Move the mic just a little bit closer to you.
There we go.
Yeah, let's try it there.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
So what made the change then?
Well, I came back. We sold the restaurant.
Yeah.
And I had capacity. And then I came back and I asked Pastor at the time, I want to get involved.
Okay.
And he said, the only place you have right now, we have room for you, is cleaning ministry. So I took on the role of managing the teams, the cleaning teams and the routines on cleaning.
And this is 20, what? 15, 16?
16?
Okay.
Yeah, because Lexia wasn't born yet.
Yep.
2016, yeah.
Yep.
So 2016, 2017 maybe. But that's all I was doing.
Okay.
And choir.
Yep.
But I wasn't running the ministry. I was just attending. I was just doing very minimal things. And then we had capacity in our church because we had a few things happening in our church where we had a room and we needed people to step up. We had no pastor.
Yep.
And we had lost some key people in our church who were holding a lot of our ministries. So I had to then make a decision where I'm only doing cleaning, but I do have a skill set and I had a desire to serve. Where similar to my piano, it wasn't something that I wanted to do, but there was a gap. I find every ministry I've ever done is a gap.
And that's what I wanted to touch on before you continued, was being willing to step in that gap and say, okay, yeah, I'll do that. Even if it's not my forte, even if it's not where I'm talented in, I'll take it because the ministry needs.
That's been my whole ministry career to date.
Yeah.
So 16, I did piano. Had never had a piano lesson in my life. Then I did choir because we thought let's have a choir. Yeah. Then fast forward to the cleaning ministry. I don't think it's anyone's ever first thing to say that they want to do as a 25 or 26-year-old guy.
Yeah, 100%.
So there's a gap. I filled that, and then now what I do now it became leadership. It started off with running the leadership,
like the retreats,
the
meeting.
That was the first thing I did. I think properly helping now pass the mantle. But that's a gap. I don't have experience in that. And it's something that I knew I could possibly do. As I said, I have a will. I don't have any of the experience, but I have a will.
Yeah.
So I ran that semi-successfully. There's a lot of gaps and a lot of failures on that day. Yeah. But it was better than what they had expected. So, I had met that expectation. But my will or my desire to serve was always greater than me having to have what I wanted out of it. I think that's what Pastor saw and what I think God has seen in my life, in that I will do whatever within reason to serve God and to be a help to further His kingdom, as opposed to just going after what I want.
And how important do you think that is in a Christian's life in general?
I think that's what God wants from us. It's about our availability. And in the front of my Bible, I've got the word be available, the 2 words, be available. For whatever, it could be for whatever God wants. Yeah. Do I have a certain desire of what I want to do as a ministry? Yes, I do. And I have a long-term goal where I want to be. But I'm nowhere near it now. I'm not even on the right trajectory to get there. But I have faith enough that if I just continue to serve God faithfully, that one day I may see that come into my life and I'll be serving it in that capacity.
And I think that's a very common theme in a lot of people's lives, that it's been 5 years since you started properly in ministry, going full speed ahead, right? And you just said you're not on the trajectory of where you want to be in ministry. How frustrating can that be over the years?
Oh, it's a daily frustration, and it's something that I have to personally ask God to help me have the right spirit to put on the altar. Coming to every Lord's table, making sure that I'm coming in the right spirit. That's one of the things that I have to always struggle with, is being content with where God has me in ministry right now.
100%.
And then I finally, Elevate was another one that I fell into. Not like
expecting.
everyone knows I wasn't running to run Elevate.
Yeah.
I wasn't the ministry I had. I came in purely as an admin support to those who were looking after it.
Wow.
Overnight, both of the people in it had moved on, and there was this gap. Pastor Mansell looks at me and says, "Mate, you have to fill in." Now you got to understand. Prior to that day, I had never preached a day in my life. I had never led any ministry like that was teaching,
Available teaching.
not music, as in teaching. So once again, I had a decision: do I step up, or do I ask somebody else to step in?
And what mentally goes through your head at that point? There's got to be a lot of arguing going.
It is, because selfishly, I don't want to be doing things that I didn't plan for. Because what we do is for God's glory. I get that, and I'm not trying to take away from that. But
No, of course
it's
not.
a lot of work. There's a lot of
hu-
sacrifice.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that people do forget about ministry is there is a human aspect.
Yeah.
As much as we do everything for the Lord and we want to be spiritually right with Him, there is a human aspect that you can't discount because God doesn't discount that.
And there's a sacrifice. Like,
Yeah.
the more time you're going to give to church and God, which is a great thing to do, something else has to sacrifice.
100%.
You only have limited time in the day.
Yeah.
Now, with a career and family, and I have a big family already, I'm just trying to juggle that. I need to find a time to give God what He deserves as well. But then there's also sometimes a balance where you're doing too much in that respect, where then your family, so I've got a wife and now almost 3 kids. I forget there's one coming very soon.
One coming on the way, mate.
I don't want to take away from them either because that's my first ministry.
100%.
But then, finding that balance has been always a struggle for me. But I've had to set some safeguards in my life. Elaine and I have, honest conversations around when I am overstepping that line. I was doing too much where I'm not present or not available for her and the children. So it's not like it's a one quick fix that you can pray about it once, you get an answer, and then it's hunky-dory from there.
Yeah.
It's something that we talk about, we open up in communication, we pray about, and we work on a weekly, monthly basis.
Elevate. How much has that changed you? Besides giving you a lot more grey hairs,
No hair.
how has that changed you as a person? Because you said at the start you had no experience in all of this over the last couple of years, mate.
Selfishly, it's been one of my favourite things I've probably ever done in my life.
Okay.
Hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Sure.
Naturally, it wasn't my forte to speak in front of people. I said to you, have a speech impediment. You guys love to remind me about it.
Do
weekly. I can tell you there's one time that I was preaching and I was giving a message, and this was back maybe 2019, pre-COVID, and I started so much. But what was harder was that
We were struggling.
Jeremy, and Peter, I think, were sitting, I can still remember, you're sitting right in front of me on my right-hand side, but openly laughing at me.
We couldn't hold it in at that point.
And you try and giving a message and you're trying to be serious. And once I get anxious or nervous, it switches on. Like
it's full on.
It gets worse and worse. And in hindsight, we laugh now. But so going into it, but now having that skill set, like, I'm not saying I'm great, and I don't think God's actually going to use me again in that capacity. I think it was for a season. He may decide otherwise. It's just my feeling. He's moved me on, so this is my last. I think I have like 4 more weeks of Elevate left.
Hey, there you go.
So I'm handing over to some gifted and some talented individuals who just happen to be my best friends. So it serves me well that I can still be part of it because I've got some pull with them. But it was the best. It was just to have my friends, because I count you guys not just church friends. Like a lot of you people elevate. Well, the elevators that I like to call them, which you guys do not like at all.
I like it. I'm a fan of it.
I got to hang out.
Yeah.
For me, it was like this big hangout.
You held
where
on.
Sometimes I had to be responsible.
You held on to that youth for a little bit longer.
I don't think any part of me held on to any youth ever. But we had fun. Well, I had fun.
Yeah.
And even being responsible, I rarely did that either.
Yeah.
Like the snow trips, like half the stuff we did.
The missions conference, but the missions trip, but
ad hoc missions trip.
Yep. Or the 1 week where Fun Benji came out to play before Lexi was born.
What a fun Benji.
Talk about Fun Benji, bro, because that, honestly, in all my time knowing you, has been my favorite week of all time.
I used to be a very fun person, in my opinion. Spontaneous.
I never met Fun Benji before.
My whole life, I've bought tickets to go overseas and gone 2 days later. Like that's like half my trips: Thailand, Lebanon,
Remember Rockhampton?
Rockhampton.
That was like a 2 day,
2 days
out of
before
nowhere.
I go, I just book trips and I go places.
And I went with you then. I remember that.
And somewhere in my life, something happened. I'm gonna call it my Elaine period.
She's not going to be happy.
Where you're lucky she doesn't
That's
watch
a fair point.
your podcast, so that's all right. Where I became not Fun Benji. I
Okay.
became responsible, mature, who had to plan his life 6 years in advance. So Fun Benji, how old was Lexi? 2018?
Yep.
I was speaking to you, a couple of boys, and I said, I'm going to dedicate 1 week of my life back to being Fun Benji. Elaine was 7 months pregnant. Yep. I knew in 3 months' time or 2 months' time, I can't count, my life would become even more regimented. So I introduced the 1 week Fun Benji policy. The rules were, you could call me anytime, or you can, and I'll have to do and go wherever the person asked of me.
And this was any time. This wasn't like
anytime.
anything at all. Mine was 3 a.m.
I was almost honest to all of it except one night, but we'll get there shortly. You were my first one?
I think I was your second. I think Stat was your first.
Yes.
And then I came.
Stat was first.
And then I came night 2.
Yeah. So Stat, he's together many silly things that we do, but give him credit. It was great. We did a trip, him and I. He came picked up at 2 a.m., 1 a.m., and we hung out and got home. Elaine was like, this is silly. And I said, this is Fun Benji. You just don't understand Fun Benji. And the next night, you call me.
So I get home at 12:30 that night, by the way. I sleep for an hour and a half, wake up at 2 a.m. I was like, okay, let's go. Went to 7-Eleven, picked up the Breakfast of Champions at that time, which was a 7-Eleven muffin and a bottle of V, and then rang you at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Picked you up.
Yeah.
And we went to Kiama.
Well,
We drove all the way down there.
we hit some balls into the ocean.
Sure.
Some golf
Yeah.
balls.
I think we're past the time period of getting in trouble for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we hit some golf balls into the sea.
Yeah, that was fun.
Had a good time.
And then that happened for a couple of nights. Then I remember it was a Friday night, and I went to sleep knowing that at some stage in the night, someone's going to call me.
Yep.
And this time was Abud. He said, watch out for tonight. So this is night 4. I'm struggling at this stage, right? I won't lie to you. Like, fatigue hit me.
Well, I don't blame you, because even that night I picked you up, you got home at 6 and we're ready to go to the beach for the entire day with your family.
I still had Elaine who wanted to enjoy the summer holiday. So night 4 or night 5, I go to sleep. But the problem is, right, I slept. And then I remember waking up thinking, I feel too good. Like, something is wrong.
I got too much rest.
Then what proceeded to be the hardest day of my life, because I look at my phone and my phone is now on aeroplane mode. And if you know me, Ray, my phone is never on aeroplane mode.
Why is it on airplane mode, Ben?
Raymond, my beautiful, gorgeous, lovely wife, Elaine, she decided for me that I needed a night off from being Fun Benji. She thought, he can't handle Fun Benji anymore. So she's turned my phone on airplane mode. And then when she's heard my friends outside throwing rocks at my window, which I'm gone.
Once you're gone, you're gone.
I was asleep. Well, 4 nights of not sleeping, that'll do it to you. She's ignored them and let me sleep.
Wow.
The conversation that proceeded after that, let me tell you, I won't be discussing on air, but
Let's just say not Fun Benji came out for a day.
Not fun. Elaine witnessed not Fun Benji, and probably has not witnessed it since. It's been 5 years?
Something like that, yeah.
4 years since then, yeah. So, we're hitting the anniversary soon, Ray. So,
Mate,
I'm thinking I may resurrect a fun day, like a 24-hour.
I reckon
Fun Benji
48-hour period.
40 hours.
Yeah, because you got the night period as well. Or 36. You know what? I'll give you 36.
2 nights worth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like start midnight, end it around 7 p.m.
I just recommend you do not include Elaine in any of these discussions.
Trust me, she won't know a thing.
But yeah, I think we should resurrect it again.
I'm in, bro.
Good times. And the last time we kicked it off with going to the Three Sisters, but by bus.
By bus
Where
with
we
like
reversed
12.
it onto Tim.
That's right.
And we wake him up. And
Yes.
we took him on a bus trip. We hired the
Mate,
bus.
we did a lot of crazy stuff back then. What's going on now? Too much responsibility.
Yeah. Everyone's getting married around me.
Sure, if you say so.
Well, I pin all non-fun activities down to people getting married, and that's what happens to them.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. But yeah, so then, mate, Fun Benji came out for that week. We got to experience something different. But then the other side of Benji, back to the whole ministry thing, is when you were thrown into everything, you also got thrown into the deep end of organising a missions trip.
As I said, it's one of those gaps. We had a mission trip.
Big one.
Big one. Like we had 2 buses worth of people going up from Sydney, going up there. And at the time, Pastor Mansell couldn't go. And someone thought, yeah, Ben is the right person to lead this. Now, you have to understand, as responsible as I can be, my regard for rules is not always where it should be.
Yeah.
I'm a family of 6 boys. Growing up, a lot of friends, pushing boundaries and rules is in my nature. Mm-hmm. So making me in charge of not only friends, my parents.
Yeah.
So you try and coordinate Joe Mannah. I didn't. Let's be honest.
I don't think anyone's done that yet.
I didn't do it. I wasn't successful. But had my parents who were a support. But I also had Southland and Pastor Hernan there as well. He was a support, but he relied on me to run the day-to-day operations of the whole ministry.
And so that's what I mean. Like, that's one of the bigger ones we've done in the past 10 years. What's going through your head getting all that responsibility placed on you?
How do I get through the next hour? Or I had it in like bite-sized chunks. If I looked at it holistically and I thought, how am I going to get through the next... How long have we gone for?
14 days.
14 days. How am I going to get through these 14 days? And the living environment was not
ideal.
I would have shut down and accepted defeat from the first minute. Our very first 18 hours was hard enough because we were driving non-stop.
Yeah.
And my bus that I was in was not the appropriate environment.
It was not the fun bus. Fun Benji did not appear that bus trip either.
It was suitable for mature Benji. I was driving 17 hours straight. I'm a decent driver, but Tim, you look at him and you think this guy's a bus driver.
Yeah.
Like
he's going to drive 20 hours, no
like
issue.
You look at him and that's what you see him doing that.
Yeah.
We've seen it our whole lives.
Yeah.
That's not me.
And you impressed everyone with that trip, bro.
I genuinely say this. Now it's funny. I think I slept a lot of that trip driving. I was asleep for a lot of it.
Yeah, okay.
I still have to pick this bone with Pastor Hernan, and I hope he is watching this. I asked him to keep me awake, and he turns on some of the slowest hymns I've probably ever heard in my life. And let me tell you, at 3 a.m...
That's not what you want to listen to.
You're in the car in a silent bus. No one is speaking at this stage. You look over at the bus next to you. Everyone is laughing. Like,
fun time.
People were just hitting the window. People were walking. Like, I don't know what's happening on that bus, but the lights are on. Tim is laughing. I'm surprised he wasn't having an accident because he was laughing so hard. And then my bus is silent and I'm just driving. It's getting darker. And then there's him playing. So Pastor Hannon, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, so operationally, as I said, bite-sized chunks, holistically was too big and overwhelming. But and that's how I've taken a lot of things in my life these days. I don't look at the whole picture. I just ask God for the strength to get through that bite-sized chunk of that process. And then before I know it, if you break it down into these small little obstacles that you have to come across, they're doable. So I looked at the first trip, 18 hours. God just helped me to get there. And then 18 hours, it's doable. Then the first night of unpacking, I don't know if you remember how difficult, and you guys made it even more difficult by hiding my tent every 5 minutes. Like I couldn't, just needed to switch off for 5 minutes, and then I couldn't find my tent.
But then we found your tent, we put it back, and
then when I get in my tent, and I'm so happy. Like now, I've just driven this whole. I've got 52 people were there with us.
Yeah, something like that.
52 people. I've set up tents, toilets, telling them to have showers because apparently it's a thing.
Apparently, that's not a thing you do these
It's a thing we
days.
don't do these days, apparently. Then I get in my tent and I could feel the presence of 10 adults around me, and I open my tent and there is a circle of humans just talking and
Having a
laughing
conversation.
around my tent.
We're having a conversation.
So that was, so every day was just one. Then we get in, like, we're in the rain. Do you remember in Taroom? I think it was Taroom. We're in mud to our knees.
That last one was terrible.
Time, like, every day was just a new challenge.
Yeah.
But if you look at it as day by day, let's just get to this next step. We were feeding everyone like on a portable gas burner. My mum's a machine. You know,
Unreal.
She does these amazing things. She's always been someone. You know, she's given me that ability to think that everything's possible. But every day, you know, in hindsight, there were a lot of unimaginable, impossible tasks. But when you ask God for that grace and that ability to achieve one at a time, they were able to do it. And in my opinion, it wasn't the best outcome by any means. I'm sure there have been other more successful mission trips, but we achieved something as a church.
Yeah.
We had fellowship. We got the word out. We formed relationships. You know, Jeremy and Jackie got married out of this trip.
Yeah. We're talking about that on Sunday, actually.
You know, like I actually spoke to Jackie about it on Sunday, saying to her, like, praise the Lord. If nothing came out of it, which other things have come out of it, we've formed a marriage, and now they're having a baby together. Like, you know, God uses those opportunities. We formed relationships with Southland through that. We solidified relationships with Southland through that. With Jim Heberley, with Pastor Highland, like all these relationships that we now use and we now have furthered God's kingdom, stemmed out of that one mission trip that could have closed down if people didn't step up to take it on.
You said that your mum always helps you think that the impossible is possible. I don't want you to sell yourself short, because you did the same on that trip, and I don't know if you realized it. I think I was 19, and you came up to me straight away and you're like, you're going to run the kids program. For me at that point, I hadn't run anything. That was literally the first thing I was ever going to run. Why were you so adamant? Because it wasn't just me with that, but you got a lot of the young guys and girls to head up stuff. What was it in you that said, no, I'm going to get these young people to do it rather than give it to
two things?
Adults.
Number one, people like you have always shown the availability. For me, that's far better than any experience anyone's ever had. To being available to do the toughest, or to do something that you're not ready to do, but still give it a go because you want to be helpful. For me, that's an asset that not many people have in their lives. But number two, I was so sick of people discounting young people because they didn't have that experience, or they hadn't seen or achieved something yet. Because how are they supposed to gain that ability? You know, I was a victim of that. My life being one of 6 boys, or being in a group of people where I was always just a bit younger than all my friends. So he's the youngest, we won't give him a go. And so I have always made it a thing of mine to work with young people who have the right attitude, but who just may need a bit of training, but give them a go. And so, you know, going up to you was not, I didn't care about it, whatever. It was because you showed those attributes or qualities of someone who wanted to achieve something for Christ. But also you had a good attitude about it. You know, you would do you would get your hands dirty basically, just to achieve a goal.
Sure. Well, mate, I appreciate that, because that started something in me.
So you can blame me now.
Yeah, pretty much. I know who to blame for the trajectory of my life. But the other side of things that I don't think a lot of people would have seen, a lot of people would have understood that was going through your life post that, or even during that time period, was all the struggles you had family-wise in regards to your kids. You know, Lexi was born with Hirschsprung disease. That's struggle street.
It's been a huge development part of my life. So even her being born, my children are born through IVF.
Okay.
I don't even know what that stands for. I'm sure there's that.
I've looked it up about 7 times, so I could sound smart. I forgot what it stands for.
Yeah, I'm sure it stands for something very technical. You can look it up if you like.
Sure.
But my kids, all 3 of my kids, were all conceived through IVF. So I'm very blessed that we have that technology. But you know, it took us a long time to get to that stage where we were ready to take that step.
Yeah.
And to have a family through those means.
So what's the reason for IVF? Just in case someone doesn't know, what's the reason to go down that path?
So when you can't naturally have children, so science has, God through science, has given us opportunity to be able to get Elaine to have a child. Still us, they're still our children, but not through the usual means.
The stock standard,
yeah. So for us, it's been a journey because that's not traditional.
Yeah.
We're Arab, first of all.
Yep.
Even as Christians, we don't want to play God.
Yeah.
But also, God has given us the spirit of discernment. He's very pro-life. And so we had used that, the means of the science and the technology that we have now, to have our children. So, I say that in one sentence, but that's a lot of months and years of praying, fasting, discussing, and coming to a decision of, this is still pleasing to the Lord, and this is how we want to have a family. Because otherwise, we would have no family as children.
And how long did it take for you and Elaine to come to a place where you were comfortable with exploring that option?
From when we first found out that we were unable to have children naturally, it was a 4-year process. Now, a lot of that wasn't just deciding, but along that 4-year process, there were many obstacles or hurdles in which we came to a crossroad of, do we keep going or do we stop? Like, is this a sign from God to stop, or is this God telling us not to do this? You second guess yourself, because I guess we always had that sense of we don't want to not be in God's will.
Yeah.
But we asked God to open doors or close doors as He saw fit, because we wanted to be walking in His will. We didn't want to do anything that was going to go in contradiction to what He wanted for hers in my life. Yeah. As the head of the home, I was trying very hard to ensure that I wasn't steering her in the wrong way. She was very accommodating, and she was very submissive to what I was saying. So, I couldn't use Elaine as the gauge of
whether or not it was
this is, because she was very supportive, and she was happy to follow what I had, a final decision that I had made if we were sitting on the fence together.
Yeah,
she would always rely on me. So I had the added pressure of ensuring that I was doing the right thing. Now, God opened many doors, and fast forward, Elaine, Lexi we find out that we're pregnant with Lexi, and then you're on this high because God opened that door.
Finally did it.
It's fantastic. We're 5 years into our marriage, and we finally fallen pregnant with our first child. It's for Christians, it's like an eternity waiting. We wanted to have kids within 6 months of being married. We were planning.
Wow.
6 months into our marriage, Elaine said to me, "I want to have kids." She was 23 at the time, I think.
Wow.
She was a child herself. And we had the discussion, and so Elaine's pregnant with Lexi. It's now March. We're having the baby. We had just finished our evangelistic meetings at church.
Yep.
That Sunday night, Elaine was saying, "Ben, I'm tired." I remember sitting in church together. We had come in 2 separate cars because I was in choir. She goes, "Ben, I want to go home." I'm like, "There's an hour left. Like, relax. Like, sit down." She goes, "Ben, I'm tired." She goes, at this stage, she's 9 months pregnant. She looks at me and she goes, "Ben, I have to go home." Anyway, thank God she did. She gets home, her water breaks.
No way.
And that night we had Lexi, and I'm still on a high.
Yeah.
And then, as most people know, Lexi was diagnosed with Hirschsprung disease, and then which followed onto her being in intensive care for, I think, 8 weeks. Couple surgeries later, we were still there. So we went through another hard season of our life, and your mind takes you to places that you don't want it to go. You start thinking, is this a punishment for what we just did with IVF?
Sure.
You start to second guess, and then God just settles your heart, and He sends people your way to remind you that God is in control of everything. And so Lexi, praise God, now you wouldn't know it, what she's been through, her smile on her face. Fast forward 2 years later, or a year and a half later, we have Asher, who was born healthy. And let me tell you, would think he's gone through World War II or something with his life and the way that he carries on. So, it's just hard.
How do you go through that 8-week period? Because I remember seeing you, man. It was rough. We were praying for you constantly.
It's one day at a time. As I said, I've taken that same concept in every area of my life. there were days where they said to us that she may not make it. No one wants to hear that. No one wants to be in that situation. But you don't deal with the future. You deal with what's in front of you right there and then. And I think that's all God ever wants us to do. And I think that's what God was teaching me then. Like, I thought, I had got to this stage, or I had got me and Elaine to this point. But God has reminded me every step of the way, everything that's good in my life has been from Him. Anything that I've enjoyed, it's because of God. And that was the other thing. Lexi, getting moments. You know what? I actually remember asking God, just give me a child for one day.
Wow.
And like, this is pre Alexandra. And I remember then I got Lexi, and then she was sick. And I want to take back that comment. Like, no. Like, I didn't literally mean one day, but give me a child. And then, you give it to God. And I remember the day that they told us, it was Good Friday of 2018 when she was born, where they said to us, she may not make it through the night. And I remember saying to God, if that's your will, let it be done, but that's not what I want. God's will isn't always what we want.
Yeah.
But, I thank God for the time He's given me with her, the time He's given me with Asha, and potentially this next daughter I have in January. But each day it's, okay, how can I get through today? Because I don't know about tomorrow. Yeah. That's that hymn we sing. It's so true, because God does not want us to worry about tomorrow for the things until we've got through what we have to get through for Him today. We can forward plan, we can be good stewards of our time and money and everything, but we still need to always focus on what we're doing today, for the glory of God.
I think that's a very, unfollowed mindset right now, especially with, young people trying to plan for the future, trying to get their degrees sorted, whatever it might be. It's so hard to stay in the moment. And I think we need to be staying in the moment, especially during those rough times, because if we don't, and we don't learn the lesson that God's trying to teach us in that moment, we're going to miss it. And then we'll find ourselves out of that moment and not realize what He was trying to say.
And everything we do, every action that we make, that we take now, the consequences affect or change or alter our future. So if you're not making the right choices today, you can be planning for something down the track, but you're not going to get there if you haven't set yourself up for success in that area right there and then. So we need to spend more time focusing on the choice that we're making now. We may think we're young, but each choice will affect your future, and it may change where you should have been if you had followed God's will from early on.
That's deep, bro. That's big. Well, let's close this off, but I want to close it off how I do every episode. I put you in a time machine, chuck you in the DeLorean, and I send you 10 years back. That's 22-year-old Benji, right?
No, mate, I'm 34.
You're 34.
Yeah.
You're 10 years older than me.
Yeah, I'm very old.
Wow, man.
Yeah, so 24.
What are you doing here? You're 24 years old. You're my age. What are you telling 24-year-old Ben?
That's scary, Rex. I just met Elaine.
Yep.
I'd still marry her.
That's good to know.
I'd still go. But I would tell myself the stuff that, take time to enjoy, the free time, exercise a little bit more when you're 24. Don't indulge in that second Big Mac unnecessarily.
Okay.
Or the first one for that matter. Just really appreciate the ability to do what you can with the time and money and the resources you have around you. Because I feel like a lot of people miss out on the present because this, as we said, it's so focused on the future. I'd holiday, or I would serve in greater capacities, or I would take that chance that I didn't take. Yeah. Maybe go back to social work. Who knows?
Okay, nice. Enjoy it, guys. Enjoy your moment. Enjoy the time you have. And Ben, I've enjoyed my time with you today, bro. I appreciate it. Ladies and gents, make sure you follow Ben. Where can they find you online?
Only Instagram.
Only Instagram?
That's it. Okay. You can find me there. It's Benjamin Mannah.
Can I tell you, that's a very young person's game, so respect to that. So find Ben on Instagram, Benjamin Mannah. His link will be in the bio, as it always is. Follow the page, follow the channel, share us around. Let us know who you want on the show next. Ben, thanks for talking to me.